In 1901, off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, a team of sponge divers led by Captain Dimitrios Kontos discovered an ancient Roman shipwreck. Among the statues and amphorae, they brought a shapeless, salt-corroded lump of bronze to the surface. For decades, this artifact, catalogued as number 15087, would lie in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, dismissed as merely a part of a broken statue or a primitive navigational tool. No one suspected that inside this rock-like clump was technology that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. This mechanism is a prime example of so-called out-of-place artifacts. These are human-made objects whose technological complexity, material, or depicted subject matter starkly contradicts the accepted understanding of the civilization that created them. Essentially, it's like finding a fully functional smartphone lying among the bones in a medieval tomb. They are technological ghosts, anomalies in the historical timeline that force us to ask uncomfortable questions. Are they evidence of forgotten, highly advanced civilizations? Traces of solitary geniuses who were centuries ahead of their time? Or are they simply the result of incorrect dating and our own arrogant view of our ancestors? This problem is known as chronological snobbery, the unconscious belief that we, modern people, are inherently smarter and more capable than those who lived before us. This journey will take us from the depths of the Mediterranean to the deserts of Iraq, from scientific laboratories to theories of lost continents, in search of an answer to the main question: who left us these messages from an impossible past? Let's return to artifact number 15087. It spent decades in obscurity until the 1950s, when historian of science Derek de Solla Price, facing skepticism from his colleagues, began to study it closely. In 1959, his article in Scientific American had the effect of a bombshell. The first X-ray images revealed something incredible. Hidden inside the rock was a complex system of dozens of bronze gears, fitted with clockwork precision. It was not an astrolabe. It was not a clock. It was something far more complex that shattered all notions of ancient engineering. The story of the artifact turned into a scientific investigation. Using modern technologies like computed tomography and 3D modeling, scientists from the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project managed to completely reconstruct its operation. In essence, they reconstructed the world's first analog computer. The case concealed at least 37 gears. Turning a single knob set a model of the solar system in motion, showing the positions of the sun, the moon, and the known planets of the time. It predicted eclipses and even tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. Moreover, it modeled the moon's irregular movement along its elliptical orbit, a challenge that European clockmakers would not solve for another 1,500 years. To grasp the scale of this discovery, one fact must be understood: the mechanism used differential gears. This is a device that allows for the addition or subtraction of rotational speeds, which was thought to have been first described by Leonardo da Vinci and not implemented until the 16th century. The Antikythera mechanism was at least 1,400 years ahead of European engineering. This isn't just like finding a jet engine in Tutankhamun's tomb. It's like finding its complete technical documentation and assembly manual as well. The mechanism proves that the ancient Greeks possessed knowledge we could not have imagined. As early as the 1st century BCE, Cicero described 2 similar spheres, created by Archimedes, that modeled the movements of celestial bodies. It is likely that we have found one of these devices, or a copy of it. But this raises an even bigger problem. Why was this technology completely lost? Why, after this device, was there a great gap in complex mechanics for 1,000 years? Was it a singular flash of genius, or the tip of the iceberg of a technological tradition that sank along with the Roman ships that plundered Greece? The Antikythera mechanism is not just an artifact. It is the benchmark against which all other out-of-place artifacts are measured. It is undisputed, studied, and accepted by science. It has become a Rosetta Stone for lost technologies, forcing us to translate our understanding of the capabilities of the ancient world. It proves that our concept of linear and progressive technological development may be fundamentally flawed. History does not always move forward. Sometimes it takes a step back and forgets its greatest achievements. Our journey now takes us from the Mediterranean eastward to the territory of the ancient Parthian Empire, now Iraq. Here, the story begins not in the depths of the sea, but in a dusty basement. In 1938, the director of the National Museum of Iraq, Austrian archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, was sorting through old collections when he discovered several unassuming clay jars, each about 13 centimeters high. Inside each was a copper cylinder, and within that, an iron rod insulated at the top with a bitumen plug. Koenig proposed a hypothesis that was shocking for its time. These were ancient galvanic cells, simple batteries created almost 2,000 years before their official inventor, Alessandro Volta. The theory is simple. Filling the jar with an acidic solution, like grape juice or vinegar, would create a potential difference between the copper and iron, causing the device to generate an electric current. Numerous experiments, including the famous tests by the Mythbusters, have confirmed that it works. The battery can produce a weak but stable voltage of about half a volt. By connecting several such devices together, one could feel a slight tingle. But if it was a battery, what was it used for? The most popular theory is for electroplating, the process of coating one metal with a thin layer of another, such as gold. Others suggest medical uses, perhaps for primitive electropuncture or pain relief, with weak electrical shocks. The most exotic version involves religious rituals, where priests could miraculously shock worshippers with a jolt from a deity's statue. The main problem with all these theories is the same: no wires, gilded objects, or any other associated tools were found near the batteries. Mainstream science is far more skeptical of this idea. Most archaeologists believe they were simply vessels for storing sacred papyrus scrolls. However, this version has a weak point. The bitumen plug sealed the jar airtight, which is ideal for holding an electrolyte fluid, but extremely inconvenient for retrieving a fragile scroll. Unlike the Antikythera mechanism, there is no irrefutable proof here. The Baghdad Battery is an artifact whose form only hints at an incredible function, but provides no key to unlocking its mystery. The Baghdad Battery leaves us with an unanswered question. But other objects offer an entire map of the impossible. Literally. The map of the Turkish admiral Piri Reis, dated 1513. The admiral himself stated that he compiled it from 20 source maps, some of which dated back to Alexander the Great. It depicts the coasts of South America with astonishing accuracy, and, most surprisingly, a portion of the Antarctic coast, free of ice. But Antarctica's ice sheet formed millions of years ago. Could there have been an ancient seafaring civilization that saw the continent in a different state? If the Piri Reis map is a historical puzzle, other finds look like outright provocations. The Ica stones from Peru and the Acambaro figurines from Mexico depict humans interacting with dinosaurs. For proponents of alternative theories, this is direct proof. For science, they are obvious forgeries. In the case of the Ica stones, the local farmer who supplied them to a collector eventually admitted to engraving them himself, using pictures from comic books and textbooks. These artifacts have no archaeological context, rendering their scientific value null. Sometimes an anomaly arises not from a forgery, but from a misreading of the evidence. In the Egyptian temple of the goddess Hathor at Dendera, there is a bas-relief resembling electric light bulbs. We see objects that look like bulbs with a filament, in the form of a snake, and a cord leading to a box. Ufologists see paleocontact here. Egyptologists, however, calmly explain it as a standard myth. The snake is the god Harsamtus being born from a lotus flower, which is the bulb. The cord is the lotus stem, and the junction box is the Jed pillar, a symbol of the god Osiris's spine and of stability. However, not all mysteries are myths or hoaxes. Some are simply forgotten knowledge. The 7-meter-high iron pillar of Delhi, created in the 5th century CE, is unique in that it has barely rusted in 1,600 years. The secret lies not in impossible technology, but in a lost one. A high phosphorus content in the metal promoted the formation of a very thin protective film of oxides on its surface. Another example is the golden figurines of the pre-Columbian Quimbaya culture, created about 1,000 years ago. At first glance, they look like insects or birds, but on closer inspection, they have features of an airplane, a delta wing, a vertical stabilizer, and a fuselage. Aeronautical engineers who built enlarged radio-controlled models confirmed that they do indeed fly. However, many of the figurines have eyes and toothed mouths, making them look more like stylized flying fish than Boeing blueprints. Finally, there is the classic case of a pseudo-artifact, which shows how easily a sensation can arise from simple junk. In 1961 in California, a car spark plug was found inside a rock estimated to be 500,000 years old. It was later identified as a 1920s-era champion spark plug. Further investigation revealed that the rock was not an ancient geode but a ferrous concretion that had formed rapidly, in just a few decades, around an ordinary object. This gallery of anomalies shows one thing: every such object requires not faith, but rigorous scientific scrutiny. The scientific approach to such finds relies on a simple principle known as Occam's razor. Its essence is simple. If you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. Before postulating the existence of Atlantis or extraterrestrial intervention, one must rule out simpler explanations. Perhaps the artifact is not as old as it seems. Its purpose may have been entirely different, and its technological sophistication could be the result of chance or our own exaggerated perception. A key problem with many controversial objects is the lack of a clear provenance. If an item is not found during professional excavations but bought on the black market, its scientific value is zero. An artifact without archaeological context is like a page torn from a book. You have the text, but you don't know the author, the title, or the plot. It's impossible to prove its age or its connection to a specific cultural layer. This is precisely the case with the Ica stones. Our brains are also prone to seeing familiar patterns and random shapes. This psychological phenomenon is called pareidolia, the same reason we see faces in clouds or a human figure on Mars. We project our modern knowledge onto the past, seeing a light bulb in an Egyptian myth and an airplane in an insect figurine. Science insists on interpreting objects within the context of the culture that created them. To an ancient Egyptian, a snake born from a lotus was a clear religious symbol, not an electrical diagram. However, science does not dismiss everything. Objects like the Antikythera mechanism are recognized as genuine. They are explained not by phantom civilizations, but by the existence of geniuses or entire schools of craftsmanship whose knowledge was lost. Imagine how much knowledge was destroyed in the fire of the Library of Alexandria. We see only what has accidentally survived. History is full of such technological dead ends, brilliant inventions that failed to spread due to wars, economic crises, or simply a lack of demand, and were subsequently forgotten. But for many researchers, the theory of lone geniuses or forgotten schools is too simple an explanation. They assemble all these anomalies into a single, global picture. In their view, humanity is suffering from a kind of civilizational amnesia. Proponents of this idea, such as author Graham Hancock, argue that long before Egypt and Sumer, a highly advanced civilization existed on Earth. It perished in a global cataclysm, possibly a comet impact at the end of the last ice age. The few survivors passed on fragments of their knowledge to younger cultures, giving them a kickstart. In this worldview, the Antikythera mechanism, or the Piri Reis map, are not random flashes of brilliance but faint echoes of a former greatness. Another theory seeks the origins of these technologies not in the depths of the Earth, but in space. This version, popularized by Erich von Däniken, suggests that Earth was visited by extraterrestrial guests in antiquity. They shared technologies with humanity, which were perceived as divine magic. In this logic, the golden airplanes and the Dendera lamps are not inventions, but attempts to copy alien technology in a form of cargo cult, the worship of technology whose principles are completely misunderstood. There is also a more philosophical view that questions the very idea of progress as a straight line from a stone axe to a smartphone. What if history is cyclical? Ancient teachings, such as the Hindu concept of the yugas, describe time in this way. Civilizations, like living organisms, are born, reach their peak, and then decline, and the cycle begins anew. Perhaps we are not the first high-tech civilization on this planet, and our predecessors simply left these strange traces behind. Ultimately, the debate over these objects is not just a dispute about facts, it is a clash of two worldviews. For mainstream science, they are anomalies, to be explained within the existing historical paradigm. For proponents of alternative versions, they are evidence that should trigger a paradigm shift and force us to completely rewrite human history. It is a battle for the very essence of our past. After this long journey, all the controversial finds can be sorted into three metaphorical baskets. The first, the basket of illusions, contains forgeries, dating errors, and products of our imagination. The Ica stones and the Koso spark plug go here. The second, the basket of forgotten mastery, holds genuine but entirely explainable achievements. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, or the Baghdad Battery, are not magic, but testaments to high craftsmanship whose secrets were simply lost. And there is a third basket, the smallest and most valuable, the basket of genuine anomalies. Today, it holds only one undisputed exhibit, the Antikythera mechanism. It is objects like these that drive science forward. They do not invalidate all of history, but they add crucial refinements to it. They are a kind of humbling artifact, forcing us to admit that the past was far more complex and inventive than we are accustomed to thinking. The true value of such finds is not to prove the existence of Atlantis, but to cure us of our arrogant view of our ancestors. History is not a static monolith. It is a vast mosaic with far too many empty spaces. Archaeologists estimate that humanity has excavated less than 1% of all historical sites. Every out-of-place artifact is a challenge, a whisper from the depths of time, reminding us that we are far from knowing everything. And perhaps the most incredible discovery, one that will revolutionize our understanding of the past, is still waiting to be discovered, somewhere beneath the earth or at the bottom of the ocean.